Have you ever had a moment so surreal, so out of left field that you honestly stop and wonder if reality's just screwing with you on purpose? I'm talking about the kind of moment where you catch yourself poking your own arm to make sure you're real and not just some paint on a lunatic's canvas. For me, that moment rolled in quietly one Tuesday afternoon when my phone rang and a 911 dispatcher sounding calm but kinda exhausted asked, "Sir, I need you to confirm your address one more time. You're at 1412 Pinewood Trace." "Correct," I answered, steady as always. 40 years of civil engineering does that to a man. Steady is my default. I deal in stress loads and structures, not in chaos. So I just asked, "Is there a problem?" What I got back was a sigh so deep it could have come from the bottom of the Grand Canyon. "Well, sir, we have a caller, a Miss Caroline Davidson. She's reporting a trespassing and a housing dispute at your address." And I glance out my front window, and sure enough, there's Caroline Davidson herself, standing on my immaculate lawn right next to my favorite Alea bush, looking like she's about to call a garden club to order. Next to her, two giant suitcases and a hat box like she'd just flown in from 1956. "A trespassing dispute," I asked, gripping the phone tighter. "Well, she's standing on my lawn right now, so she's the trespasser." The dispatcher, patient as a saint, says her claim is a bit more specific. She says you've offered her lodging, but the room you provided is, and I quote, "criminally undersized and woefully inadequate for a person of my standing." Now I'm silent. I mean 911 because my guest room isn't big enough for her. That's a new one even for Pinewood Trace. I state it plain, I have never offered this woman lodging. We barely speak. She lives 4 houses down and has her own perfectly nice 3-bedroom. Dispatcher, sounding like she's massaging her forehead, goes, "She claims you have a long-standing arrangement and you're reneging. She's demanding an officer be sent to enforce the terms of her residency." I'm telling you, at this point, reality tore a little at the seams. The thing is, Caroline had been on a one-woman campaign to make my life miserable ever since I moved in 2 years ago. A campaign of petty notes, nasty looks, snide comments to anyone who'd listen about how the character of Pinewood Trace just isn't what it used to be. I'm a 68-year-old black widower. I moved here for peace after my wife passed to tend my garden and read my history books. But Caroline was hell-bent on raising my peace to the ground, one insane act at a time. "Sir, a patrol car is on its way just to mediate. Please don't engage with her," the dispatcher says. But I'm watching out my window as Caroline stands there scolding the sparrows at my bird bath, and I realize this isn't just entitlement anymore. It's a 5-alarm fire, and I'm the one holding the extinguisher. I know the cops can chase her off for a day, but she'll be back. I need a plan, one that's quiet, legal, and perfectly engineered to contain her brand of crazy. But to get how someone ends up at your door with luggage demanding a bigger room, you need the whole build-up. It started with a casserole. My first week here, Caroline rings my bell, holding a dish covered in foil. Doesn't smile, just says, "I'm Caroline Davidson, president of the HOA for 12 years. I know everything that goes on here." She hands me the dish, eyes scanning my hallway for flaws, then starts right in on the rules: lawn watering schedules, trash can, etiquette, the works. I thought, okay, fine, she likes rules. But the casserole was bland as dishwater, and after a taste, I tossed it. Big mistake. A few days later, she shows up demanding her vintage Pyrex dish, back inspects it for scratches like a jeweler, and sniffs, "You used a scouring pad. You don't use a scouring pad on vintage Pyrex." That was the tone set me failing her secret tests. Then came the notes: my lawnmower's unacceptable decibel level. I mow at 10 a.m. like a normal person. My new black mailbox, when the approved color is forest green, but half the mailboxes are God knows what shade. I decide to play it polite and ignore her, thinking she'd get bored and move on. Nope. She doubled down, spreading little lies. He's up to something. Gets so many packages. What's he hiding? One day, while playing chess with my buddy David, I mentioned my daughter and grandkids were visiting soon and how it'd be nice for the guest room to finally get some use. Unbeknownst to me, Caroline was in her backyard listening like a Cold War spy. Somehow in her head, this innocent comment turned into a business proposal. Soon after, I get a professionally typed letter from her. "I'd like to formally accept the terms of residency. We'll discuss financial particulars later. I'll require a key." She even started acting like a tenant, measuring my yard drainage, leaving a tape measure on my porch. It was like living in a Kafka novel. By now, I'm documenting everything, notes, video clips, neighbor accounts, because when reality starts losing grip, facts are the only anchor. David, who's a retired lawyer, takes one look at my files and says, "This isn't just annoying, it's textbook harassment, and it's escalating. You're not just dealing with a nuisance. This is a medical issue. Don't react. Just document." Eventually, she'll try something so public nobody can ignore it. And of course, he was right. She showed up with her luggage, demanding entry, convinced I'd offered her the royal suite. When I told her flat out again there was no arrangement, she lost it, accused me of discrimination, screamed that I was denying her her rights, and called 911 on me for trespassing against her imaginary contract. I watched the scene from my study as the police car pulled up, neighbors peeking out from behind curtains. The officer listened patiently, then came to my door. "She lives down the street," I said. "She has a house. She's created this whole story in her head." The cop nodded weary. "You might want to file for a peace order, Mr. Hayes. This feels unstable." But I knew a piece of paper wouldn't cut it. Here's the twist, the one pressure point I hadn't considered. I started digging and found her son Richard, a partner at a big law firm in D.C. It hit me, he's the only one she might listen to. So I wrote the most factual, calm, bulletproof email of my life, attached video clips and her delusional letter, and sent it off. The next day, my phone rang. Richard Davidson, exhausted, apologetic, mortified. I just watched the video and read the letter. My God. She hasn't been herself since Dad died, but I never imagined it'd get this bad. He promised to intervene, said this incident finally gave him leverage to get her real help. That weekend, I watched a gray sedan park outside her house. Richard and a woman who looked every bit the calm professional, a social worker, I guessed, went inside. A while later, they walked out with Caroline. She looked small, all the rage drained out. Just an old woman carrying a bag. They drove away. Richard called that evening to thank me, told me she was in a geriatric facility for evaluation and that he'd handle everything. Later, he even sent me a check for your peace and trouble. I mailed it back with a note, "Peace has been achieved, no payment needed." After that, the street felt lighter, like a storm had finally blown through. Neighbors who'd avoided eye contact now stopped to chat. My garden thrived, and the file labeled Caroline Project on my computer became a strange little relic, proof of just how far delusion can spiral when left unchecked. So that's my story. Justice wasn't loud or angry or about revenge. It was quiet, clinical, and honestly a little sad. But sometimes that's the only justice there is, the kind that quietly resets the balance, even if no one else ever hears the gavel drop. Have you ever had a neighbor like that? Someone who just couldn't let go of their own reality? Let me know in the comments. Sometimes patience isn't passive. Sometimes it's the sharpest tool in the box.